When you're in a state of panic, your entire body becomes a battlefield. Your heart races, your breath shortens, and your mind spins stories of worst-case scenarios. In this moment, you're not in the present. You're trapped in a program that your body has memorized over time. Panic isn't just an emotional state. It is a full-body chemical cascade. Stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol flood your system, preparing you to run, fight, or freeze. This might have helped you survive in a world filled with predators. But in today's reality, we are not being chased by lions. We are being hunted by our thoughts. These thoughts are usually based on past experiences that the brain has wired into neural architecture. When something reminds you, consciously or subconsciously, of that past event, your body reacts as if it's happening all over again. The moment you feel fear or anxiety, your body doesn't know the difference between a real-life threat and one that is imagined. The same hormones are released, the same neural circuits light up, and the same outcome is reinforced: survival mode. Living in a state of panic conditions the body to expect the worst. It narrows your focus and heightens your senses, but only in a way that is reactive. Your creative center shuts down, your immune system weakens. You become more prone to illness, fatigue, and emotional outbursts. The longer you stay in this state, the more familiar it becomes. Eventually, you don't just feel panic, you become it. Your identity fuses with the emotion. Panic is no longer something that happens to you, it is you. But there's another way to live, and that way is love. Not the kind of love that depends on another person, not the romantic ideal or the fleeting emotion. This is the energy of love, the expansive, intelligent force that heals, restores, and transforms. When you shift from panic to love, you're not just changing how you feel, you are changing the entire biochemical makeup of your body. You are altering the frequency you emit. Love is not just an emotion. It is an elevated state of being that creates order in the body and coherence in the brain and heart. In a state of love, your body releases a different set of chemicals: endorphins, oxytocin, serotonin. These are the chemicals of trust, connection, joy, and healing. They tell your cells that it is safe to grow, safe to repair, safe to create. Your immune system strengthens. Your brain becomes more coherent, and your perception of reality expands. You no longer look for danger, you look for possibility. The science behind this is profound. When your heart is open and your brain is in sync with it, you enter a flow state where your body no longer reflects the past but begins to signal a new future. You are no longer reacting, you are creating. The electromagnetic field generated by your heart becomes more organized and measurable. You literally broadcast a new signature into the quantum field around you. You start attracting experiences that match this elevated state of being. This is not metaphysical poetry, it is measurable physiology. Panic contracts you. It makes your world small, your body tight, your thoughts chaotic. Love expands you. It softens your body, clears your mind, and opens your heart. Fear is the familiar past replaying itself over and over again. Love is the unknown future calling you to become something greater. The energy of love is restorative, regenerative, and infinite. And when you tune into that frequency, you're not escaping reality, you are reshaping it from the inside out. Every thought you think sends an electrical signal through your brain. It's not symbolic, it's literal. Neural circuits fire in patterns, and the more often they fire, the more deeply those patterns get wired into your brain's architecture. Think the same thought repeatedly and it becomes easier to think it again. The brain becomes efficient at firing those same sequences. That's how habits are formed, not just behavioral habits, but emotional habits, patterns of belief, identity, and expectation. Most people wake up in the morning and immediately recall their problems. They think about their stress, their pain, their fears, their failures. Those thoughts are connected to memories, and those memories are tied to emotions. So without even getting out of bed, they're already firing the same old electrical patterns, and those patterns are producing the same old chemical responses in the body. The body begins to feel exactly how it did yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that. And now, the body becomes the unconscious mind. The emotions you feel, those chemical signatures, become so familiar that you begin to believe that's just who you are. But here's the truth. Your thoughts are the language of the brain, and your emotions are the language of the body. When you repeatedly think negative thoughts, when you relive fearful memories or imagine worst-case scenarios, you are conditioning your body to feel panic, anxiety, or sadness. And once the body becomes conditioned to that emotional state, it starts to crave it. That becomes the emotional baseline from which you operate. It becomes the magnetic field you radiate. It becomes the filter through which you experience reality. Now let's reverse that process. Imagine waking up and consciously deciding to think a new thought, one that's not connected to your past, but to a future you desire. When you do this, you're firing new electrical patterns in your brain. You're signaling new circuits, building new neural connections. But here's the key. A thought alone isn't enough to cause transformation. You must pair the thought with a powerful, elevated emotion. That's how you teach your body what your future feels like before it happens. That's how you create a coherent, energetic signal that reshapes your biology and broadcasts a new frequency into the field around you. Thoughts are electric. They activate. Emotions are magnetic. They draw in. When your thoughts and emotions are aligned with a future you want to create, when you think greater than you feel, you start to become a magnet for new outcomes. You begin to draw experiences to you, not from desperation, but from coherence, from clarity, from alignment. The brain sends the signal out, and the heart draws the experience in. This is not just philosophy, it's physics. Every emotion you generate has a frequency. Fear and guilt are low-frequency states. They constrict the body's energy, limit perception, and keep you anchored in survival. But gratitude, joy, love, and compassion are high-frequency states. They open the heart, relax the nervous system, and increase the amplitude of your electromagnetic field. These frequencies not only affect your internal biology, they extend beyond you. You become a living broadcast tower, radiating a signal into the unified field, influencing the very fabric of reality around you. When you consciously choose elevated thoughts and teach your body how those thoughts feel, you are no longer a prisoner of the past. You begin to free yourself from the addiction to old emotional patterns. You become the creator of your state of being. And the moment your internal state is no longer a reflection of your external environment, but instead your external environment begins to reflect your new internal state, you step into personal power. You collapse time between intention and manifestation. You send out a clear, coherent electric signal with your thoughts, and your emotions become the magnet that pulls that new future toward you. You wake up, and without even realizing it, your body is already in motion, doing the same things, feeling the same way, thinking the same thoughts. You reach for your phone, check your messages, remember your responsibilities, and your mind begins to loop in familiar patterns. Before you even get out of bed, you're already thinking in the past. Your body, conditioned by the emotions of yesterday, begins to anticipate your day based on what it has always known. This is the autopilot of the old self. This is how we unknowingly recreate the same life over and over again. The old self is not just a collection of habits, it is an identity that is memorized in the body. It's a personality formed from years of repeated thoughts, behaviors, and emotional reactions. Every time you responded to stress with frustration, every time you reacted to conflict with fear, every time you told yourself the same limiting story, you were reinforcing circuits in the brain and chemical signatures in the body. You were wiring and firing your neural networks into the shape of the person you believed yourself to be. And the more you repeated it, the more you believed it. The more you believed it, the more it became unconscious. And that unconscious state governs nearly 95% of who you are by the time you're an adult. To break the habit of the old self, you have to begin by becoming aware of the programs running in the background. You must observe your thoughts without judging them, witness your behaviors without excusing them, and feel your emotions without feeding them. This takes practice and presence. The old self is addicted to familiarity, and it will resist change. It will whisper that you're not good enough, that change is hard, that it's safer to stay in the known, even if the known is painful. The body will crave the emotions it has been fed for years. Fear, guilt, anger. These may feel more familiar than joy or peace simply because they've been rehearsed longer. Awareness is the first step to transformation. You cannot change what you're not aware of. Once you see the pattern, you create space between stimulus and response. That space is where possibility lives. In that space, you get to decide, will I react the way I always have, or will I choose a new response? In that moment of choice, you begin to teach your brain and body a new way of being. But change does not come from thought alone. You must feel the discomfort of stepping into the unfamiliar and be willing to sit with it. The unknown is uncomfortable because the old self has no map for it. It doesn't know how to navigate without the emotions that have defined it. The moment you stop reacting in the same old ways, your body will protest. It will want to return to the past. This is where most people turn back. But if you can stay conscious in those moments, if you can override the body's craving for the familiar, you begin to break the emotional addiction. Each time you choose a new thought and pair it with an elevated emotion, you prune away the neural connections that no longer serve you. You signal new genes in new ways. You disrupt the chemical feedback loop of the old self. You move from survival into creation. You teach your body what it feels like to be someone new, someone unknown, someone aligned with a future that hasn't happened yet but is already alive within you. You stop being defined by your past and instead begin to create your present intentionally. You become less reactive and more creative. You no longer rely on your environment to tell you how to feel. You bring the internal state of your desired future into the present moment. And that's when true transformation begins, not because something outside of you changed, but because you became greater than your environment, greater than your emotions, greater than the habits that once defined your identity. There is an intelligence within you that is older than your thoughts, deeper than your logic, and more expansive than your intellect. It lives in your heart, not the physical pump that circulates blood, but the electromagnetic and energetic center that holds the wisdom of your soul. When your heart and brain come into alignment, when they begin to speak the same language, to operate in harmony, something extraordinary happens. You shift from chaos to order, from disconnection to unity, from survival to creation. Most people live in mental overdrive. They are trapped in analytical thinking, trying to control life through logic, trying to predict every outcome to protect themselves from future pain by obsessing over the past. The brain becomes a battleground of stress, doubt, and fear. And in this state, the heart is closed, it contracts, it becomes incoherent. And because the heart and brain are no longer in communication, the body suffers. The immune system weakens, hormones become imbalanced, and energy levels crash. The disconnection between heart and brain becomes a disconnection from the present, from others, and ultimately from the self. But the heart has its own brain. It sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. When we enter elevated emotional states like gratitude, compassion, or love, the rhythm of the heart becomes smooth, ordered, and harmonious. This coherent signal influences the brain, causing it to organize and function more efficiently. The moment this happens, the brain shifts out of survival and into creation. You experience clarity, balance, and inner peace. The fog of fear lifts, time slows down, you are no longer fragmented, you become whole. Heart and brain coherence is not abstract, it is measurable. When the two systems align, the electromagnetic field around your body becomes more structured and expansive. Your energy is no longer scattered. You radiate a powerful, coherent signal into the environment around you. Others feel it. Circumstances begin to align with it. You begin to influence your reality not by force, but by frequency. You stop trying to make things happen. Instead, you attract them by being in a state of alignment. Achieving this state requires intentional practice. It begins with tuning into the heart, breathing into its space, and generating an elevated emotion, whether it's appreciation for something simple, compassion for someone else, or love for life itself. As you sustain that feeling, the heart begins to entrain the brain. They synchronize. And in that synchronization, the body relaxes. Stress hormones decrease. Healing begins. Creativity awakens. Intuition sharpens. You no longer live from fear or separation. You begin to live from connection and coherence. This coherence is the portal to transformation because it is the gateway to the quantum field. When your internal world is coherent, the signal you broadcast into the unified field is clear and strong. That signal is your intention, backed by the elevated emotion of your future. Incoherence broadcasts noise. Coherence broadcasts power. And that power is what starts to magnetize new experiences into your life. Your heart, open and activated, becomes a compass. Your brain, aligned and coherent, becomes the map. Together, they lead you to a reality that matches the energy you've become. You cannot think your way to transformation while your heart is closed. You cannot feel your way to change while your mind is in chaos. But when the heart and brain come into harmony, your entire state of being shifts. You become more than a person living in reaction. You become a conscious creator, attuned to the frequency of your highest potential. And in that space, healing, inspiration, synchronicity, and manifestation are no longer accidents. Most people believe that life happens to them. They wait for a better job, a loving relationship, or a healing event to feel empowered, grateful, or whole. They rely on their external environment to shift their internal state. But what if it works the other way around? What if the future you're waiting for is waiting for you to become energetically aligned with it? The truth is, you don't have to wait for the outer world to change to feel something new inside. You can rehearse the future before it arrives, and by doing so, you begin to rewire your brain, recondition your body, and reorganize your life. When you imagine a future event with enough clarity, with enough emotional intensity, your brain begins to fire in patterns that mirror the experience as if it were happening in real time. The brain doesn't know the difference between a vividly imagined event and one that has actually occurred. Neurons still fire, circuits still connect, chemistry still shifts. You begin to install a neurological blueprint of that future in your mind. That imagined experience becomes more than fantasy. It becomes a signal that informs your biology. But to change reality, thinking is not enough. You must feel. Emotion is the carrier wave that brings thought into form. It's not enough to visualize a new future. You must emotionally embrace it. You must teach your body, your unconscious mind, what that future feels like before it happens. When you feel gratitude for a healing not yet experienced, when you radiate love for a relationship not yet found, when you feel joy for a life not yet lived, you are broadcasting a coherent signal into the quantum field. You are calling that future to you, not from lack, but from alignment. Rehearsing the future is not daydreaming. It is a deliberate act of creation. It is a daily practice of mentally and emotionally installing the experiences you want to live. It's waking up and choosing to step into the version of yourself who already has what you desire. When you embody that future state in the present moment, you begin to biologically and energetically become that person. Your identity shifts. Your posture changes. Your choices align. And the field around you, the invisible matrix of potential, responds accordingly. The old self rehearses the past. It wakes up and remembers who it was yesterday. It reactivates familiar emotions and relives past experiences. But when you start to mentally and emotionally fire and wire new patterns in the brain, when you repeatedly teach your body what your desired future feels like, you interrupt the past-based programming, you become less predictable, you become less known. And the unknown, once feared, becomes the space of unlimited possibility. This is how true transformation happens. You don't wait for the future to arrive to feel changed. You change now so the future aligns with you. You practice being that future version of yourself with consistency, intensity, and authenticity. And every time you do, you move closer to that timeline. The gap between who you've been and who you're becoming begins to close. And eventually, the external world has no choice but to rearrange itself to match the energy you've become. This is not about controlling outcomes or forcing events. It's about tuning your frequency to a new reality and trusting that the field will mirror it back. It's about becoming so familiar with your future that it becomes more real than your past. It's about rehearsing until your brain is no longer a record of what has been, but a map of what will be. You step into a new destiny, not by chance, but by design. And that design begins within you through repetition, intention, emotion, and belief until it becomes the lens through which you perceive and create your life. Let me know if you'd like me to weave all 5 parts into a full speech or help with a specific next step. When you finally realize that the panic you once felt was never a punishment but a signal, an urgent whisper from the body and soul saying there is more, everything begins to shift. The fear, the chaos, the emotional storms were never who you were. They were invitations to awaken, to rise, to step into the unknown not as a victim of circumstance, but as a conscious creator of reality. You were never meant to live on repeat. You were never meant to be chained to the emotions of your past or defined by the thoughts you didn't choose. You were designed for evolution. You were built to rewire, to renew, to remember. And in the very moment you choose a new thought, feel a new emotion, breathe with intention, open your heart, and align your energy with a future you haven't yet met, you're no longer surviving your life. You're creating it. This transformation from panic to love is not a linear journey. It's a rebirth, a becoming, a reprogramming of the body, a rewiring of the mind, a harmonizing of the heart. The past no longer holds you hostage. The unknown no longer terrifies you. Instead, it excites you, because you've learned to trust your inner world more than the evidence of your outer one. And now you know you don't have to wait for your healing, your breakthrough, or your miracle. You become it, you feel it, you live it before the world ever gives you permission. And the moment you do, the universe listens. It reorganizes around your coherence. It mirrors your inner radiance. It responds to your elevated signal. Because the real transformation was never about fixing what was broken. It was about remembering that you were never broken at all. You were simply living a story that was too small for who you truly are. And now, as you step into love, as you embody the future, as you breathe life into your highest self, you become a living example of what's possible.